Okay, we have a quorum anyway, and so I think we could start, and Jay can join if he gets a chance. All right, welcome everyone. This is the meeting of the Environmental Advisory Council on Tuesday, May 6th, 1:01 p.m. And I'll call the meeting to order. First, we could start with roll call. Reminder, if you could give your name and where you're calling in from, and just say if there's anyone else in the room with you. I'm Rachel Sprague. I'm the current chair of the Environmental Advisory Council. I'm calling in from Lanai City, Hawaii, and there is no one with me. Dawn?
Dawn Hegger Nordblom calling in from Maui. There's no one here with me except my animals.
Which are very welcomed.
Yeah.
Michelle?
Michelle Lefebvre on the island of Hawaii, exemption committee chair, and no one is here with me.
Excellent, thank you. And then we'll go to the ERP staff who are there with Director Mary Alice.
So in Environmental Review Central, here I'm Tom Eisen, Senior Planner.
Mary Alice Evans, Director of the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development.
I'm Raymond Sin, active duty United States Air Force. I'm here as a public observer.
Thanks, welcome.
I'm Michaela Crane Murley. I'm a Heleamua intern under the Environmental Review Program.
Great, thank you. I think that's everyone else because the ERP staff, that's just the
recording system. Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, wonderful. So we do have a quorum. We have 3 of our 4 members here. The first item on today's agenda is review and adoption of the minutes from April 1st. Council members, do you have any edits or questions, or do you want a minute to review the minutes?
I reviewed. I had no comments.
Okay.
Same.
All right. Then I will entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Excellent. Thank you. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. I was waiting for Jay, actually. Sorry. I was like,
I know, no, that's okay. It's hard when there's not many options.
Right.
Okay, the motion carries. We've adopted the minutes from April 1st, our April 1st meeting. Thank you all. And so moving into today's agenda, we have the director's report and then a potentially slightly longer item on the exemption committee to look at the Department of Education exemption list, and then some discussion of a potential upcoming forum on HRS 343. So Director Mary Alice, if we could move to the director's report. I put an item there for update on legislative session and anything else you would like to update us on.
Okay, thank you very much, members. I'd like to start with the note of the loss of Chuck Prentice. He died recently. He was a longtime member of the Environmental Council and was also the executive officer for the City and County Planning Commission for decades, and a strong advocate for planning with deference to the environment. So just for those of you who may have heard of him or know of him. Then I'd like to move to a legislative bill, House Bill 1074, I think,
Yes.
that did not pass. And I wanted to give a little bit of insight into that matter. House Bill 1074 relating to the environment, or
environmental impact statement.
Yeah. It initially, or its original version, would have amended Chapter 343 to provide a 1-year suspension of cancellation of commercial boating permits in Kaanapali and other permit programs while the Department of Land and Natural Resources complies with Chapter 343 pursuant to Judge Peter Kubota's order in the Kaanapali commercial boating suit. As the bill moved from House to Senate and back to House, it got changed quite a few times. It became, the last version was amending Chapter 200, which is the DLNR's commercial boating permitting program. And it would have provided a 1-year suspension of extension of permits, existing permits, not new permits, while DLNR complies with Chapter 343. Ultimately, the Senate decided not to name conferees to the conference committee on this bill after hearing from a number of constituents who were very concerned that the bill was gutting Chapter 343, and that it was some of the and that they preferred to have. They thought if the bill were passed, it would discourage DLNR from entering into a settlement with the plaintiffs. Well, DLNR had said they could not comply with the settlement terms that the plaintiffs proposed because they were outside of DLNR's jurisdiction. But so that appeared to be something that wasn't likely to happen anyway. However, DLNR promised that they would continue to comply with the 6-month injunction that Judge Kubota provided to allow DLNR time to comply. So I think the interesting part about this bill is that it generated an intense amount of opposition to basically 20 permits, and that the opposition was focused a lot around the role of Chapter 343 in providing an opportunity for the public to look at disclosures of environmental impacts. And the other piece of that is that this was the second time that plaintiffs opposing a permitting program that did not, have physical disturbance of land as a core part of the potential impacts. I just think for the council's information, it's useful to know where the law is evolving and where the members of the public are seeing an opportunity to become more involved in using Chapter 343 to ensure that they have every opportunity for input on environmental impacts of all kinds of programs, not just developments. So I thought that's helpful. I'll pause there and see if the members of the council have any questions about this particular legislative item. Dawn.
Mary Alex, do you think DLNR is going to come to, they're going to redo their exemption list? Is that your feeling?
Yes. And I think, Dawn, I'm glad you reminded me. I'm finding some confusion among members of the public with the terminology that the chapter uses and the rules use. they think that when somebody says they will have a notice of exemption, that it's exemption from 343 rather than exemption from preparation of an environmental assessment or environmental impact statement. And that, I think, is something that probably the council can advise on how to make that clear, because in the testimony on House Bill 1074, there seemed to be that confusion on members of the public that somehow DLNR was proposing to exempt itself from 343 altogether, rather than stating that they could, among the three different actions that they could choose to determine that the permitting program was exempt from preparing environmental assessment rather than not exempt from 343. It was very, the chair of the Board of Land and Natural Resources, Don Chang, made a strong effort to make that clear, and I don't think entirely succeeded. So I think that's an issue that the council can help with going forward, as to how to, maybe it's a matter of changing the language when you look at the rules updates. Maybe it's a matter of just public information in forums. And then I have a couple more items, Chair. Can I go ahead with those? Oh, you're muted.
Michelle, did you have any questions on that legislative item, or?
Oh no,
No.
I was just
No.
it called to mind to your point, Mary Alice, about describing the process, and I mean there is that really that brought to mind the flow chart that is on the ERP website that explains the process. But
Thank you.
It when it shows the exemption process in that flow chart, I mean, yeah, you're still within the 343 process. So I mean, I think there's not that there couldn't be more conversation, but I think the public being sometimes confused about sort of how the process works. I know projects I've worked on, the trigger becomes an issue for our project, right? What when you point folks to the rules and say, this is the trigger for HEPA, they'll say, well, but there was, but this happened. That should have been a trigger. So sometimes, you have a hard time explaining, when you're in the process, when you're out of the process, and what the process is. But
I'm writing a note for our forum item that like a discussion of what exemptions sort of are and are not, and what are that could be a potential item for a forum of kind of examples of the kinds of things that don't fall under 343, things that fall under 343 but have an exemption. Like what does the exemption mean? So I'm writing notes to myself.
They call it exemption versus exclusion.
Ooh, that's a good. All right, I'm writing that down.
I do a lot of just talking with people about these things. Exemption comes up all the time, and I try to make it clear whenever I use the term exemption, I follow it immediately. Exemption from the erstwhile requirement of preparing an EA. It's a mouthful, but and then exclusion is you're totally outside of the 343 system, and this confusion is exacerbated by some language in the statute, which doesn't help anything, that they use exemption within it to talk about exclusion. So it's a
Lovely.
but there's a lot of room for clarification, that's for sure.
Yes. Yeah, the federal regs have some similar excluded versus not included don't mean the same thing. Anyway, okay, so we can touch on some of those things again when we sort of hit the information and outreach committee forum, future forum item. But yeah, back to you, Mary Alice, on the other items that you said you wanted to share.
Okay, the next one is, I think, a wonderful example of, and it's actually triggered by DLNR's concern now that that all their permitting programs need to be in compliance with 343. There haven't been lawsuits on all of them, but they want to get ahead of that and just ensure that there is compliance with 343. And the example I want to cite is the recent preparation of a notice of exemption within 343, not excluded, but within, by DBED's Creative Industries Division on behalf of a filming project that requires a right of entry permit by DLNR. And so the notice of the exemption determination was done by the Creative Industries Division by a consultant, Trish Kehalani Watson, and it was probably the most detailed notice of a determination of exemption that I've read. It read like an EA, and DBED then has made that determination and then has sent the monthly notice for the department into the environmental notice for publication. And based on that, the Board of Land and Natural Resources did go ahead and issue the permit. Trish made a very thorough presentation to the Land Board, and they were, I think, found some reassurance that DBED had been very thorough in its review of the significance criteria and made their determination. So I think that's kind of a nice example of how this evolving awareness of compliance with 343 is playing out by public agencies and applicants. This was an applicant action. Okay, and then one final, any questions on that, members? Okay, one final piece of information. The State Judiciary's Environmental Court has reached out to 3 of us to provide a training to the Environmental Court in June 27th, on Chapter 343 and the rules. So we're going to provide a panel. It's going to be myself, Scott Glenn, and I'm hoping Kathleen Ho, who was the Deputy Attorney General for the Environmental Council during the rule update process, part of it. So that I'll be working with Tom and Kim and Kaylee and Jen to come up with a PowerPoint, and also with Scott Glenn and Kathy Ho to make sure that we cover different things. And that process flowchart is actually an excellent thing to do a walkthrough on. I can't imagine how you could squeeze it all onto one slide, but we could certainly start with that. And so I want to thank everyone who worked on that. It was, and updated it. A huge piece of work. So that concludes my my presentation for this afternoon, Chair. And I'll be available for the Information and Outreach Committee's discussion as well.
Great, thank you. Michelle or Dawn, did you have any questions on that?
Not really. No.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. So the next item is the exemption committee. Michelle, if you could, I will turn it over to you to lead this portion.
Certainly. And I did not think of it till the meeting started that we did not explicitly extend an invitation to DOE to attend today's meeting. I said, oh, let's talk at the next meeting. And then I didn't follow up with a reminder of when we met and a request to attend. I think it's fine because we can talk about, I think, the changes. I think they really responded to everything that we asked for that was substantive. The biggest thing was to remove the part 3, that emergency category that Tom may remember was a recent trend in some of the lists. So they did, between the September and the March version, remove that third part of their list. So I think that was one we were hoping to see change, and they did. A lot of it was reorganization of the list. They really took a lot of took everything we said in terms of moving a lot of part 2 items into part 1 that fell within part 1. Repairs, primarily maintenance type items. A lot of those were in part 2, but really seemed like they fit better under part 1, and so they made those changes. They added the pools, like we talked about in their part 1, to sort of help them, should they get funding to improve those facilities, that would be, easier for DOE to do. They did move the construction of the fuel tanks from part 1 to part 2, which we, discussed with them. So that was a good change. Some of them had no changes to it, to those sections. The only thing I thought, which would really just be more of a housekeeping item, entirely within their discretion whether they wanted to change it or not, was just in the part 1, type 1, numbers 10 through 16. A lot of those had to do with acquisition of land or leases, transfer of title to land, subdivision. I thought those fit under type 8 rather than type 1. And there is some repetition with some of those same exemption types being in type 8. So there's a little bit of a redundancy, a little bit of a housekeeping thing. But honestly, that was my only comment at this point, was just a simple housekeeping item. Again, wouldn't be wrong, I don't think, the way that it is. Just be maybe a little cleaner for them if it was in one or the other. Did you guys have a chance to review or notice anything? Yeah, Don.
I'm looking at it now, and the only thing is there an issue with them using periods or commas, like to end sentences, I guess, because it's all just listing, but then there's no period, or it's like a big run-on list, kind of. That's just me. I don't know why there's no periods and stuff. And then the pool, is that in section part 1 under other appurtenant structures? Is that
it is in part 1, type 1, D. So athletic and play fields, tracks, that long list, but they've included pools.
Oh, okay, I see it
there. Also in type 2, which was replacement or reconstruction, they've added pools there. So to the other list of structures they might improve. Then under control fund, type 3, under construction and location of single new small facilities, they've also added.
That's fine. I was just wondering what other appurtenant structures would be for them then. Do you know offhand?
Well, in those in the list they have other athletic, playground,
something that's okay,
educational, all those are those kinds of lists.
It has like bus shelters, stairs, ramps,
yeah.
planter boxes, garages, portable structures.
Yeah.
They really took a hard, they added a lot in this version, and were, more specific, and definitely took our notes into account. Also deleted, I think there was like commercial activities under type 10, and we had asked them, oh, what kind of commercial activities, out of curiosity, and they ended up deleting that in this version. So maybe they thought it over and it didn't fit, or they didn't know what kind of activities those would be. So that wasn't included. Were there any other? Definitely appreciated the effort that they put into revising the list, and I think reorganizing it in a way that I hope helps them with their exemptions in the future.
Yeah, it looks very comprehensive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they sent a track changes one, but it didn't have all the edits in it, and I found it was just easier to sort of look at the last list from October and the new list from March and compare them side by side. And I thought it worked well. And yeah, to your point about periods, yeah, it wasn't in the last version, we didn't comment on it. And, they're DOE, it's they have the discretion to use.
That's even worse.
They're teachers, they should know.
Right. Yeah, they're the authority. I don't feel like the exemption committee has the right to tell DOE how to punctuate. No.
Well, there's sometimes lawsuits, right? Like, was that a period or a comma or something? So
well, like you said, it's more like a list, like the
right
item isn't punctuated. So I think certainly they use
run-on
punctuation within.
Yeah, they're phrases that
you mark my words, in 10 years it's going to come back to us.
Okay, well, within 7 they should be revising the list anyway.
Right. Somebody's going to appeal it because of the grammatical, but that's okay. Anyway, I'm fine with it. So where do they go from here? They show up in a meeting?
I can follow up with an email as long if we all feel good, then we can move to, well, I can send Galen an email, the DOE, and mention the administrative cleanup if they want, and if they want to do that, then we can. I'm fine with publishing the list as is. So we can move now to approve the list for publication, for public review, in the environmental notice. And then I can just get that confirmation from Galen. Like, if you plan to make a change, or she's like, no, we're good with it as it is, then I'm fine with that. Publishing the list as is for public review. So
I'm fine with publishing the list as is. Does that need a motion?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Do I do the motion, or do you do the motion?
You can do the motion. That'd be great.
Okay. Hold on.
Can someone at ERP? So I may have, and Michelle, apologize. This was after you were already traveling. I wasn't 100% sure what the action was, because I thought I read in a previous minutes that we had published the previous version, or had we not?
I don't think so.
You don't think we did? Okay, so this is not a review of an action to concur with. This is we are reviewing and
up to this point, it had only been internal between DOE and EAC, reviewing the list, providing comments, sort of going back and forth. So it started back in October.
I must have looked. There may have been an agenda item, and either it was for a different list or it was for this list, and we ended up saying it needed more work, and we didn't go ahead and publish it at the time. So I think that should be fine, because it's like a step back from what I put in there. So it's not like we're not jumping ahead in the process. So so this would be, rather than what was in the agenda, we're not concurring with the list. We are recommending publication of the list for public comment.
Correct. We are recommending the list be published exactly for public comment.
Thank you. Sorry. Apologies for that.
And then after the 15-day comment period, after it publishes in the next edition of the environmental notice, depending on the comments we receive, we can, work with DOE to address those comments and then,
Yes.
then vote to concur with the list. And then they
Yeah,
can,
excellent.
with the concurs, and then they would publish that final list
Yeah.
on the website. Cool.
Yes. Apologies for interrupting you, Dawn.
No, that was
I was figuring out, okay, so is this how I say it? Is I move to approve the publication of the comprehensive exemption list for the state of Hawaii Department of Education amended blank 2025 for
I'll second that.
the environmental notice. Yeah. Okay.
all in favor.
Thanks.
All right, that was unanimous.
So then we will publish this list unless for some reason I hear that there's a different version of it that they want published in the upcoming May 23rd issue. Because past the deadline to get into the
Eight.
May
Yeah.
8th.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm looking at the calendar now. Sorry.
I
Yeah,
have a
pass it.
question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Tom.
Oh, I just had a question. So back to DLNR's exemption list, Mary Alice, do you have any idea of when they might try to submit, or are they looking to submit definitively to EAC to for their exemption list to update it? Kind of a trick question, sorry.
I do not think they're going to update their exemption list. I think what they're going to do is comply with their exemption list, and if they may, well, I think they're inclined to see if these permitting programs, or specifically the commercial vessel operators permitting program, meets the criteria for determination of their exemption list. If it does, then they'll prepare a notice of determination of exemption. If it doesn't, they will then proceed to an EA. I think they're going to try to meet Judge Kubota's deadline for extending the current existing commercial vessel operators permits of July, I think July or September. If they are unable to, I think they will go back to Judge Kubota with a request to extend the suspension of the permitting program. Or no, of the permits. Excuse me. Did I get that right, Don?
Yes. Thank you.
I think they realized they had submitted a new and got a new exemption list concurred with fairly recently. And they know how complex of a process that is.
Yeah.
And I think they realized they can't do all that within this time frame of trying to comply with the judge's orders. They're going to try to deal with exempt or not exempt on that.
Yes. I think
And the
that's what
notion
they're
of
gonna
it
do.
changing their exemption list is separate.
Should they determine that the permitting program it does not meet the criteria for an exemption under 343, they will proceed to an EA, but they will definitely need an extension from Judge Kubota to do that. So hoping not to have to, but they're going to be very careful about meeting the criteria for determination of exemption, because they are aware that the plaintiffs may challenge whatever decision that they reach.
we expect sort of a larger size notice of exemption, kind of like the one you were talking about earlier. Did they say anything like that might indicate it wouldn't just be a, you know, a simple version, but maybe a longer form version of that notice of exemption?
The longer form version was a DBED decision.
DBED.
No, not a DLNR one.
No, I just wonder if DLNR would follow suit. Yeah.
Impression that to go the exemption route would require a very detailed analysis to
Thorough.
that. So I would expect if they go that way, it will be a very solid analysis that supports it. And it also could be that when they review their list, and this is just conjecture, that there may not be one of the general types of actions eligible that would fit a permitting program, and it's not outside the realm of possibility. They want that included in the general list of things so that in the future they can exempt permitting processes for that. But that's a whole separate action to get, that would change the rule to go to that route. But
Well, they could amend their exemption list.
The exemption list has to be consistent with the rules, and if the rules don't provide for that thing, which is possible, that takes
It
some.
wouldn't be under administrative.
I know Onana had said, you know, in meetings prior, as long as it fits within the category, it doesn't need to be, right? I mean, a specific type, but to your point, Tom, I think
Just within the category, just has to be one of the categories. And that's I'll have to do some hard looking to see if the categories are written in a way that could allow a permitting process to be consistent with one of the categories.
Like general exemption type 8, continuing administrative activities. You know, it's possible.
Right. So they could find it. It fits. Yeah, that's certainly possible.
That would be a legal interpretation. I would guess.
I bet the lawyers are going to be looking at it closely.
Right.
Okay. Michelle, are there any other items under exemption committee that you want to note or that anyone else wants to talk about?
So Tom, the deadline is the 16th, right? May 16th to make it into the 23rd.
Correct.
Okay, so I'll get a confirmation from DOE that either they're going to go with the list we have, or if they're going to make a small administrative change, and I will let you know and have them respond before then, so we know which we'll publish.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and we would not consider formatting, adding periods as a substantive change that we would need to see it again. I would not.
Right. Or just the sort of consolidation of the ones that are in two places. Again, as long, as it meets their intent, they could leave it like that, or they could move it. I think it's really, that one's mainly administrative. It doesn't change the content.
Yes.
Michelle, at the 2024 White Congress of Planning Officials Conference in Kona, on the planning law session, which is a mandatory session for American Institute of Planners to attend. Well, no, they can do it online, but it offers credit for AICP members. Brad Sykes with the City and County of Honolulu's Corporation Counsel Office was one of the presenters, and he did talk about the state Supreme Court in some case that I can't recall the citation for, that the judges were disinclined to find in favor of the plaintiffs when the plaintiffs were citing things like misplaced commas and periods in environmental impact statements or environmental assessments. That I think he called it fly specks.
Fly specking. It's the same term in NEPA as well.
Yeah. So that may be an indication that there's that they want our state Supreme Court wants substantive objections to an EIS or an EA before they will issue a decision that would remand the matter back to the applicant or the approving agency.
Yeah, that sounds good. And so that falls within, I think, what we were just noting, that we would not want to take up time again just to look at some added periods at the end of the phrases. But though we don't disagree that maybe they could it's a style choice. Okay, so I'm sorry Jay isn't here for the next item because I know that he had some thoughts, but I think hopefully we can move, or we can come up with at least some things for this. So the next agenda item is an item on the Information Outreach Committee, again, meeting of the committee as a whole, because we are currently a council of 4 people. So that the last meeting, this is partly reminding myself, we had talked about a potential forum on Chapter 343. And we were all kind of thinking about some items, and because we didn't, that was an idea that came out of a discussion partly on these legislative items and these questions around 343 and the deal in our permitting programs. We wanted to agendize it for this meeting so that we could have a little bit more discussion about what topics might be useful at a forum like that and potential speakers. So I think one thing that has come up already that sounded like a good idea to me was a potential topic on exemptions versus exclusions of, again, in a lot of the English language, those are reasonably synonymous, but in regulation and in rules, they don't mean the same thing. And so in a lot of people's heads, like, I get, I think it's understandable why they sort of lump together, but that one of them is that it is, outside of, it doesn't enter into the Chapter 343 process, and the other is a explicit part of the process that has specific boundaries and definitions to it. So I do think that would be a sort of a useful topic. And maybe I will open the floor to staff and council members, because we're so small that I don't feel like we need to be super formal for this, of what you think, I think, Dawn, you and Michelle work in Chapter 343 much more than I do in my professional life. So I'm sort of curious where you think, if we think about the audience of this, are probably going to be, what do you think? Probably action organizations, or folks who would be the ones, or no, so maybe that's a good place to start, is like, who do you think would be the audience of a Chapter 343 forum?
I think in this case, that would be, without pointing the finger, because of what Dobor is going through right now, and I think if we held an exemption versus whatever exclusions, that there would be a lot of people who would attend. And so really the onus would go on Michelle and Tom as the main speakers. So I think what it comes down to is, I had a couple housekeeping issues. So if we're holding a forum, Mary Alice, and it's Michelle, Tom, I, and Rachel, is that a sunshine law issue? Right now it's just me on the INO committee, and I probably need some help, but since we're so small, right, it's either Jay or Rachel or Michelle, or so if we're going to have a panel with Michelle, then, and I'm on INO, then does that mean Rachel can't attend because it would be sunshine, or Jay at that point?
Are you talking about the forum itself, or like planning meetings?
Well, just the forum itself, to figure out how we can move forward with the forum.
Well, it probably would be sunshine. I mean, it would be publicized.
Well, no, a public meeting doesn't have to be a sunshine meeting. A board meeting is almost always a sunshine meeting. Well, yeah, 2 of you obviously can, as long as no one solicits a vote or offers a vote on an action item. And there'll be no action items involved anyway. I have this feeling that there's now a Office of Information Practices opinion that that Sunshine board members can gather in groups larger than 2 for informational events. But I think we could ask staff to contact OIP and get the actual opinion number, and that would be helpful. So we'll take that as a job that we'll do.
Okay, so then Rachel, to answer your question, because I had done the meetings with Mary last year and the year before. So, we pick the topic, we pick the date, we pick the time, the participants, the panel, send out the link. Hopefully the agency doesn't dig out. But I admit the last one was pretty bad because I think they got the right approvals. So in this case, I think we've talked about it. I think we're ready to go on a forum anyway for exemptions. We just have to come up with a time and a date. And then the audience is probably going to be the environmentalists who are against the lawsuit, any lawsuit, community groups. I would assume that the planning firms would have their staff attend as well to make sure that they're brushing up on stuff. So I think it would be well attended. I don't think it wouldn't be. I think it's just a time to get everyone a good time. Usually it's a lunch meeting. So, and then usually we get the Zoom link from ERP staff and somebody helps us with ERP. We usually don't do breakout rooms because it's a little more difficult. But then usually the panel is like Tom would speak and Michelle would speak. And ideally we'd like a 3rd, 4th panel person. So if we can find somebody who's willing to talk about exemptions on their end, maybe Ron, when he comes back from vacation, would be helpful. But I think at the end of the day, I think it's a great topic. The other thing is, for another topic, is I had talked to Jay. I put a link up and there was an article about PFAS. And I think this is what Jay was interested in, is PFAS in general, when he came on board, and he was like, my interest is PFAS, which I think is this. So I emailed him, but I hadn't heard back. But basically what I was thinking is that having a PFAS panel would also be a good topic somewhere down the road. So I kind of started doing little inroads with that topic and with Jay to see if he's interested. So I think the 2 topics for public forum are exemptions and then PFAS.
I guess, Tom, are you still willing to be part of an exemptions forum? I know we had talked about it last year, but are you still willing?
Yeah, sure. I do a lot of talking about that anyway, so may as well do it in a coordinated fashion.
Okay.
Just
I would certainly.
The background of this with so there's the upcoming Hawaii Congress of Planning Officials, HCPO, and there's always opportunities for discussions.
We are looking for workshop topics for sessions. We would welcome the Environmental Advisory Council proposing a workshop on Thursday, August 28th. In the morning, we'll have a welcome and a keynote, but we'll have probably 4 breakout sessions before lunch, and then possibly 2 or 3. Hey, Jay, welcome.
Sorry, my other meeting went way longer than it was supposed to.
And then
computer, I have a new computer, and so Zoom is not working on my computer.
So that's your phone.
Yep.
That works.
My phone works.
Thank you.
On my laptop.
Yeah.
Thanks,
One
Jay.
more ticket
We're
is sent
talking.
to
Jay,
IT. Yes.
Jay, we're talking about the item 5, which is the forum on 343. And I should say, when something that came up earlier today was the idea of just the exemptions themselves and what they are versus exclusions. And initially I was thinking of that as like one talk as part of a forum, but it's sounding like that might be enough for a whole forum by itself on just because of the recent interest in what what exemptions are, and the role that they play, and what doesn't, when something doesn't fall under an exemption, again, those ideas, I mean, it's outside 343 or it does move to an EA or an EIS. So Jay, we were kind of narrowing in on the idea of a forum on exemptions, and Michelle and Tom, and I think because forum speakers don't have to be environmental council members or staff. Like I've spoken at a forum in the past on seabirds, just because there was interest. So, I think we can rely on folks within this group, but if there are people that you think would be good and who would be in a position to speak, and I think that we're probably aiming to have a forum that's educational and not nonpartisan, as it were, of trying to at least on this, especially on this particular topic.
Right. These are the discussions.
I know this is
those are the discussions exactly that we had last year, Rachel, that when we approached it, and we had a third person from HDOT who was planning to attend, a planner, and they backed out. They didn't have the proper approvals, but I think it was the amount of attention and scrutiny that this forum was going to get that got us all like, well, let's we lost our panel member, and let's regroup and let's really think about, I think, how to focus this, and like to your point, not straying into giving opinions. And I think Tom does this probably every day, so he's really good at not giving an opinion, because I think people are going to call in and say, okay, well, you've explained the process, but don't you think this should be, and don't you think this should be, and don't you think, you have to be clear that's not what we're doing in this forum. We're not running projects through the exemption process, because that's the agency's responsibility, not DRP's or EAC's responsibility. There will be controversy at this forum for sure, and people, I think, wanting to do that. So it's just going to take some, I think, planning and moderating to keep it on track.
But I like Mary Alice's suggestion to have it at HCPO, because it's definitely more in person than it is on Zoom. So you can kind of control the audience, not control them, but you can see who's talking. So Mary Alice, how would we put in a proposal, or do we just tell you, or are we all are we all going to HCPO? I think that's the question, number one.
And that's replacing a public one, you think, Dawn?
So Mary Alice, I think she's saying that there's a session time open if we wanted to put something forward. There's a lot of people at HCPO. There's usually 200 people, I think. But then,
and I guess if I could go back to Mary Alice, I wanted to clarify with you if that is in fact what you meant, or if that was sort of a and not an or.
It can be whatever you decide. It can be an and or an or. That's your call. What we're doing now is accepting proposals for sessions. And on Thursday, which is a full day of the conference, we're going to have probably 3 or 4 breakout sessions with 3 or 4 choices that the attendees will get to make. And one of those, so it wouldn't be the full, 300 people. It would be however many people of the attendees choose to select that particular topic versus, say, 2 other topics or 3 other topics for that time slot.
I know it was long a wish for Onauna to have a session at HCPO, particularly with having that audience and having agencies in attendance, and also sort of being able to beat the drum on updating lists for those agencies that had
to participate on your panel if you want.
Amazing, that would be amazing.
So what we're submitting a session topic, is that what's happening?
Yeah, well, that you can choose to. You don't have to. But I would welcome it. Let me put it that way.
Right.
Well, we could do both.
What I'm getting at is that was basically the discussion is submitting a session topic and then getting approved for that session topic at the upcoming HCPO conference or convention. Is that what we're saying?
Or
Okay.
doing it online. Like we could have 2 sessions, or we could have 1. It just depends on what the EAC thinks.
I mean, to me, it's up to what do you think is the most useful to reach the people that would be the point? Like, who do you want to be educated on that topic, or who do you want to be part of a discussion on that topic? If we think it's valuable to have discussion amongst planners, then I would say do it at HCPO. If it's, do you want to educate the public, then maybe it's maybe do the HCPO first and then do like a public one after. Mary Alice.
Chair, that's an excellent point. The HCPO is not free. It has a registration fee, and your forums are free to anybody who has the time and interest. So I would suggest an and, because we can't put on the HCPO without charging a registration fee, even for the speakers. Yeah, I know. It's because the Office of Planning doesn't have a budget for it, and the Hawaii American Planning Association Hawaii chapter also doesn't have a large budget. So they're our co-host for the annual conference. So we really depend on registration fees to fund the conference, and therefore that really does limit members of the public who either don't want to attend a full 2.5 day conference, or really can't afford the registration fee. So I think in the interest of making it available to anyone who's interested, the EAC should operate the option. Just a thought. It's your call.
I'm okay with doing both. But that's a lot to ask of Tom and Michelle.
Oh,
I mean, I think
it's what I do anyway, so
Yeah, I think I think we can ask that.
yeah, so it's fine for me.
Just giving you an out, Tom.
And I think, I mean, just based on all the conversations that the previous council had and the goals, they had set, which I think were good goals, in terms of trying to extend the message. I mean, really, we have 2 different agendas. We have one agenda, definitely to inform and spark discussion at HCPO if we were to submit and be accepted as a workshop topic. But also we'd be able to hit, sort of a EAC goal of trying to get more agencies to submit their lists. And then with the public one, right, we have different objectives, and, to walk through the process. So, I mean, I think those are, a lot of work, but also maybe less work than some of the other alternatives that the previous council had discussed, which was writing letters and visiting and having calls with all these different. I would much rather go and plan for HCPO and do it all right there than the effort, maybe with mixed success to try to contact individual state and county agencies.
And Jay, so I think your interest was in PFAS, is that correct? For some of your topics. And so I had put the link up because I wasn't sure if anyone would be interested in, there's an article about the fire in Lahaina, and the firefighters have levels of PFAS in their bloodstream. And I know we had talked about a panel before. So I think we're talking now too about, what kind of panels do you want to see? Or is this specific to you with PFAS? Is that something you want to concentrate on, or do you have other topics of interest?
I have a lot of topics of interest, but PFAS, because I'm a water system designer, PFAS is really important as an emerging contaminant with the new maximum contaminant level that the federal government has promulgated, assuming that it's still going to move forward. And even if it doesn't move forward, it's still a contaminant that exists, whether it's regulated or not. So that's one. Cesspool conversion is another, and in general, stormwater. Those kind of cover the basic information that I'm most interested in. Well, and sea level rise. Those are the four big things that I'm probably most interested in terms of the environment.
I think we talked about Jay perhaps trying to get a panel together of your professional background to also present as an IP as a forum. Does that sound something that you'd like to do?
Sure, I can do that. But I mean, could we step back to the HCPO?
Yeah.
So my own, I think someone else mentioned it earlier. My only concern would be the amount of effort needed by different parties to put on two different sessions. But I do also do a lot of talk. So I have a talk today, which is we had way too many questions. So which was good. There was a lot of engagement. So I know how long it takes to put together a paper and a presentation. It can take quite a bit of time. So I just want to make sure that whoever we're getting would be able to do both if we want both. And if not, my vote would be to just speak to the public versus speaking to HCPO.
Mm.
Because in that you potentially have people who can't afford to go and still be able to receive the information. And not even among consultants, not everyone can go to HCPO.
Mm.
So people in the industry. So that is both. Right. And then in terms of, putting together some type of other forum related to the environment, yeah, I could help organize something. I guess the only thing would be is what is the venue? What's the delivery of the forum? How long is the forum normally? And are there any restrictions of the type of people I would need to get to arrange the panel or arrange the forum? Because that can still take quite a while, because a lot of the people I would speak to already they're already very busy and they're already doing different papers. I'm working on another paper for a stormwater conference in July for the city and county of Honolulu. So, and I have another paper I'm working on for the mainland for next year. So it's a matter of what's the expectation of length and then what the venue is, and then we can work around organizing people and see if I can get some volunteers to round it out, assuming that these are going to be more technical experts. And I heard a little bit earlier about giving your opinion or being political or having a certain bent. I can talk to them about that, but they will definitely have a certain bias towards different things. It's not like they're not going to have a bias.
I think a bias is fine. I mean, that's their opinion, or professional or not. So I don't think that's usually an issue, unless they're going to say something completely out of bounds. But
Right.
so normally, INO, which is an information committee, there was myself and Mary Bergier, and we had one other person. And so while Mary was here, we managed to do 2 or 3 or 4 presentations. And so Rachel was actually on one of them where she talked about seabirds, and we also did watershed restoration. So some of those were really highly attended, maybe like 90 people. Usually it's a lunchtime. It's usually a 40 or 50-minute session where there's maybe 4 panels, 5 panelists, and they talk for about 5 minutes or do the presentation. And then there's a question and answer after. And usually it's on Zoom, and then, there's a moderator and somebody asks questions, and, there's a chat function. And then usually we don't have to do a press release. We usually just do like a flyer and just send it out. And I think Mary Alice can also send it out on the Deep Ed newsletter and also the environmental notice that Tom has control of. So there's different ways to get information out. And then, normally people are okay talking 5-10 minutes, and it's really short, it's very specific. And sometimes people don't even ask questions at the end. So it just depends on the topic. So I can send you a link of a prior one if you want to look at it, but it's pretty straightforward. But I understand what you're saying about time and, professional, and, a lot of people probably have a lot of things that they have to get done through timelines. So, this doesn't have to be like an immediate forum. It could be, for December, or, something just to start planning for. Does that help?
Yeah, it does help. And so who handles the Zoom arrangements? Is that
I think it's
ESP, ERP.
We would
ERP stuff.
support, yeah, we could support it like how we support all the meetings for the council.
Mhm. Yeah, and if I might add, when Jay, I think when you came in and I had made a note of like we were specifically talking about chapter 343 exemptions, and I was sort of a flippant comment about it being nonpartisan. Where I meant is obviously whenever we're asking experts or professionals to talk, they're speaking from their professional experience. It's always an opinion and interpretation, and we often in some cases have legal interpretations or legal opinions to build off of as well. I guess maybe I meant more like trying to avoid a particular specific conflict of interest with a topic that is like we wouldn't necessarily only invite like the lawyer for the plaintiffs who are suing Dobor, right? Like
Right.
that's more like if we're trying to talk specific like about exemptions or something like that that's really pertinent to a topic, or like when I was talking about seabirds, it was like that we weren't inviting, again, like the lawyer for KIUC to talk like it was trying to just back off a little
It's
bit
like
from folks who have a direct conflict of interest with the thing that people might be the most riled up about at the moment. So that's all. It wasn't not a like
oh, okay.
trying to get people to not talk about their opinions, because that's what it's for.
Okay. No, that's helpful. It's like if I were to invite the person who manufactures PFAS to the session to talk about how great
Yeah, like trying to get some balanced, and like you're trying to get a broad set of information, but trying to avoid direct conflicts of interest with drama. Mary Alice.
Our MailChimp lists are available to let people know they're free. We paid a subscription, but that means there's no cost. And we have two. We have the ERP's one, which is about 1,300 people.
Yes.
And these are people who receive the environmental notice twice a month. So
Mhm.
they're interested in topics about Chapter 343 and impacts on the environment. The other MailChimp list that we have, which has probably got some overlap with the ERP one, is the office's quarterly newsletter. We send that out, and we also, I think we may use that for our transit-oriented development meetings as well, which would be folks that are interested. Mostly, those are mostly public agency folks that are interested in transit-oriented communities around transit corridors. So we can do that without any addition. It's not a big effort, and it does reach quite a few people. And then putting notices in those bulletins allows people to forward them to whoever they may want to add to the information. So that's I think that gives you and there's really no, the membership there might have a bias in terms of planning or environmental disclosure, I would say, I hope, but not in any one direction, I think.
Sure. Yeah.
Were
there any comments from anyone? I mean, we're sort of doing, this is again, given that the the EAC right now is so small, we are not having separate committee meetings. So just to note, I was noticing a hand raised in the room, and I apologize, I forgot your name.
No, that mentioned that you're supposed to solicit public comments from members of the public who might be attending this is a sunshine meeting.
Yes.
So
yes,
there you go.
And this is where I would like to do that. Thank you.
Sure. So good afternoon. My name is Raymond Sin. I'm active duty United States Air Force. So the past 3 weeks, I was able to attend multiple, we'll say, board advisory councils just like this. And for a lot of times, a lot of citizens, residents here don't actually participate. And the most recent one I went to actually last week was for the University of Hawaii Board of Regents. And there's a new president as of January. I believe it's a 5-year term appointed by the governor. Her name is Miss Wendy Hensel actually was, I think, a lawyer or legal background. And during the public testimony after each either agenda item or so before the meeting begins or at the end, they'll have sort of time or a sign up list. It's totally up to you guys to have that format or not. And the two speakers, aside from myself, funny enough, I was formerly a licensed teacher in Las Vegas, Nevada, the Ninth Island. I've only been here about 7 months, but the other two speakers are actually both professors, also in the education field. One was named Professor Miss Ashley Maynard, psychology, and Mr. Edo Biangioni, computer science, both at the University of Hawaii. And the two things that they really wanted to emphasize for the Board of Regents was first is on student success and institutional success. And the first thing they both mentioned was the advent of technology, so artificial intelligence, data analysis for students, and all different jobs will be disrupted by technology. And the second thing they mentioned was actually civic participation and engagement. So that's something they're really thinking about in the university. Hawaii is very unique in that it is a state that is comprised entirely of islands, right? 8 islands. There's 4 counties, I believe. And in terms of, for me personally, coming from Los Angeles County, you see that you can actually go into many different meetings, different state departments, federal district courts, all within a 10-minute, 15-minute radius. Whereas if I did this in Los Angeles County, it would take me an hour and a half just to go from like Glendale to like, I don't know, Torrance, California. My hometown, by the way. It's the 1977, the Taira family, King's Hawaiian Bakery, moved from Hilo, Hawaii to the first bread factory on the mainland.
Okay, yeah.
Nice.
But I only have 2 minutes and my parking's about to expire, so I want to make it real quick. I did go to the Hawaii Tourism at the convention center, and they're great with just their help. I think it's the same department as office you guys, Department of Business, Economic and Development and Tourism. The last thing I really want to encourage, again, with technology education is a lot of the scientists and students that I've talked to, all of them are working with some software called ArcGIS or R language, people with doctorate degrees, but kind of having that sort of digital literacy early on is extremely important for civic engagement. And I think for environmental issues, it's really that bridging of gap between sort of the legalese, the legal terminology and policy and state and government with the actual scientific and environmental impact. So if you guys can really kind of bridge that gap, you'll have a more informed citizenry and find more win-win situations. So thank you very much for your time. I'm going to go to the Department of Health because that's where I parked.
Okay.
Thank you. We appreciate you again taking the time to come to this commission, even though you're right, there's not often a lot of public participation. So we appreciate the time that you took to visit us as well as all of those other commissions and state boards and organizations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So we've talked, and I think it was really useful to have some of this discussion around, I think we kind of narrowed in on topics that I guess, I think this might be a question for sort of Tom and Michelle. Like I do think that the Conference of Planners is a useful place to have conversation and get input. I think sort of thank you per the comment from the public as well as sort of the purpose of this council. I think trying to engage in a publicly available forum would be useful as sort of my opinion add to the discussion. So I don't know if doing both would be too much, or if spreading things out via timing would make it less of a burden. Essentially, like have the same presentation, at HCPO and a public forum, or if those might be slightly different conversations. So
yeah, I mean, I feel like the workshop forum, I don't know, what do we have? Probably an hour and a half. Probably
at HCPO.
Yeah, at HCPO.
Probably an hour, maybe hour 15 minutes, I think is
Right.
idea.
Right. I think they're both going to go pretty fast, and I think if we're leaving room for public participation, I don't really know that there's a ton of prep work. Tom could give his off the top of his head. If we had Onauna at at HCPO, myself, that maybe one more. Everybody's talking for 5 or 10 minutes, and then I think it's really, I've been to these other forums before, and it can be really audience led.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it's a ton of work. I mean, it's work, but I mean, once you get committed to the forum, I don't think it's terrible. And like I said, it's been a long goal of the council to get into HCPO. So I think it would be a real opportunity for us to do that, and help get the message out about the process and about agency list compliance with the rules. And then the public one, I think the same. I mean, it'll be fiery, but it's done in an hour. If we talk for 10 minutes, there's a third, maybe Ron on the, we ask them which ones they're willing to be on. But if we had Onauna for one and Ron for another, 30 minutes of talking, 10 minutes each, and then the public engagement portion. So I guess it doesn't, those two things don't seem like overwhelming amounts. But I understand Jay's perspective. If you're building one, you got to reach out to people and find people. But I think we've got people, and maybe that Onauna and Ron have a suggestion for another person, and we could incorporate them. But I don't see it as a ton of legwork to get either of those.
And I think
go ahead, Don.
Oh, I think I already asked Ron, and I think he's fine with being on a panel. And normally he goes to HCPO anyway, so I think it's just I'm fine with doing two. I don't think it would be very difficult because I'm not speaking. Of course, it's Tom and Michelle and someone else. I do have a question. Do you want to have a sample list from somebody to go off of, or do we just want to talk about general thoughts? Because that's where we got into trouble last time, is trying to bring in an agency and then they kind of backed out last minute.
Well, agency people are more in the hot seat, certainly with the 333 process. They're the ones making the determinations and kind of have the most to, not so much to lose, but they could really get attacked.
Yeah.
Forum, or if it shifted and there wasn't good moderation, they kind of stand in the hot spot. So it may be hard to get someone from an agency to represent that position. I mean, I'm an agent to represent an agency. Our role is very unique in how we don't make determinations, but we know certainly how the process works.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, in a way, I could represent the state, or the agency side of things compared to the other stakeholder in the interests.
Yeah, when I think about things like this, I get why folks want to bring up examples, because it's how many of us think, is like you're trying to fit these very sort of sometimes sort of a esoteric like, or it's sort of a hypothetical topic, like exemption writ large, and folks want to know, what does that mean for like a part 1, part 2 exemption. And you're right, I think it can be challenging to have an agency willing to talk about it themselves. And I think that you would also potentially in the moderation want to try to stay away from having opinions on pending or items under litigation. And I don't know, and this is a genuine question of whether Tom or Michelle, if one of you, like, if there could be a role for someone who isn't that agency, but saying, here are examples of like lists that are already, concurred with and sort of finalized, and determinations, examples of a couple determination, like, or not, just a couple, like, here are items that these agencies, like, here are actions they went forward with that were exempted. Here's a couple that had, that did an EA exemption notice, but that are far enough back that they have that they already did it and they haven't been litigated. And you're like, I'm not saying right or wrong, but these were items that went forward under these, just examples of items that went forward under Part 1 exemption or Part 2 exemption or an EA, or I guess, yeah, it's the Part 2s that have that EA exemption notice. To like, and again, and you're like, I'm not going to stake a claim necessarily one way or the other, but this is what they did.
Yeah, well, when I talk about our role, and certainly we kind of maintain the library of these things, so it could be brought up in the context.
Right.
Here's all this stuff that's out there. We kind
Yes.
of moderate the discussion of the. We make it available, and it kind of generalizes these things from a real active hot point to like, here's a bunch of things, how they fit in the process, without so much as saying, here's one agency who did this one specific thing that you may agree or disagree with, and just
right, that makes sense. Yeah,
chew them out.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, so not specifically calling out exact actions, but talking about a little bit more of like the kind of things that tend to fall under one part or another.
Yeah.
Just as a, I mean, that's maybe getting into the weeds on an actual like content, but so I was looking, and the HCPO is asking for submissions. There's a web form. I don't know if I can put it in the, I mean, I could put it in the chat. I'm not sure if we're supposed to or not. But if people Googled HCPO planning.hawaii.gov/HCPO 2025, there is on the first page a call for session topic ideas, and that form is here. They're asking for ideas to be submitted by May 30th. And again, I don't necessarily want to commit us, because like Dawn, I don't feel like I would be the one speaking. I think and I was not necessarily going to go. That's not one of the meetings I tend to attend. But I think if I would be happy to help with, if there's planning involved with a public forum as well. I think if you think it would be useful to talk at this, especially to have sort of EAC have a presence / involvement there, I think that, I mean, that would be something I would support.
Great. Dawn, do you want to reach out to, or you want me to reach out to Onana and Ron and see if they have preference, if we did both, if one of them would be willing or to do online versus would be willing to do in person at HCPO? I know they both attend HCPO, so you're on mute now.
I would say just commit, just fill out the submission, and we'll find somebody. I'm pretty sure Ron would do it. He's on vacation until June 1st. And then I could reach out to Onana, or you can reach out to Onana. I'm sure she'll go to HCPO. Yeah.
But I mean, I'm sure she's talked on other panels before. Yeah. So I'm happy to reach out to her and just say, hey, save our spots. We don't do a competing.
And there are also other people, who might want to speak. There's Maka'ala. There's Tessie. I forgot some of them. I have a blank. So Tom, help me out. Like other people who might be interested in talking from their viewpoints, because Maka'ala's Hanalei watershed. So I'm sure she would be very interested in saying something, like how it would work for her or doesn't work for her.
Well, I suppose at some point it gets into what is the topic of the discussion going to be. As far as contribute, the most to it, substantially.
Yeah. I mean, I can text Ron. I'm sure he'll respond if we need a decision in the next week or something, but I'm fine. I think our next meeting is going to happen after this May 30 deadline. So we probably should figure out if we're going to commit to that. So I'm okay doing 2 sessions and getting the information out there. But again, Tom and Michelle are the ones who are speaking the most. So I think it's really up to you if you're going to go to HCPO and if you're available to do another session via Zoom, and after that.
No problem for me. I'm going to be going to HCPO, and I was going to be doing a forum with you folks, so it could be separate. And I certainly agree with the idea that there are different audiences, and at HCPO you're going to get some subset of the 300 people there, maybe a fairly small fraction, just because there's a lot of other choices at any given time. Whereas the online forum, you could get almost an endless audience, but it could be, a whole lot of people that wouldn't be able to attend the HCPO. So doing that is great, and doing both is certainly fine, and I'll be able to speak at both of them.
It's over and beyond what INO would do. Mary and I were like, we're going to do one every month. And then we were like, we're going to do one every every 4 months. And then we're like, we're going to do one, at least one.
Yeah. I mean, and so say this, it's sounding like there's at least some interest in proposing. I think it does, the form, I think, does take ask a fair number of questions. Like, a short description, a session summary, relevance to the conference theme, and what would be three key takeaways. And the rest of it would be selecting what kind of format, like, is it a roundtable and facilitated dialogue, or is it a workshop or, interactive session, or is it a panel discussion? And it has different definitions of those, and then it asks for those speakers. So that would be at the end of August. If we were going to do a public Zoom-based forum on a similar topic, when do you think, I mean, honestly, like Michelle and Tom, would it be useful for you to have a public forum first, or would it be like more useful to warm up with, I guess, which one would be a warm up? Would the Zoom forum be a warm up, or would the HCPO be like, which one would be more useful to have first?
Well, the
Or hard to
public
say.
one, forget about the warm up thing, because I know the public one's going to be, well, it'll be hotter, but I think there will also be vigorous, I think, discussion even at the HCPO one, because there will be a lot of people that actually do that work and have very sort of technical, it'll be technically deeper. Lack of a better word. So I think what we could do, if we did the public one first, though, it could help inform our discussion at HCPO. Not that I love the idea of stacking one right before another, but we could then, that could feed into some of the topics. I mean, I would have an agenda of what I want to communicate with, like I said, encouraging agencies and why it's important to, update your list and that sort of thing. Aside from that message, sort of the being able to feed that discussion with what came out of the public forum. I think for those who didn't attend that one, it could be like, look, you guys are the people either that work for local government, work for state government, doing this work, right? So, here's the pulse, here's what we got, in that session, and bring it to that'd be one advantage.
That's
if anything, a consideration is, if you're going to do the public forum first, and it would basically be in June or July, just need to be preparation fairly soon. It's during the summer, people are traveling. It may be a little more challenging to pull that together pretty quickly. Whereas if it were after, there's many months left in the year to do it.
Not for sure.
But it may be a lot to pull it together sooner.
I agree. And I've got public meetings in Kauai in July, so that will be, I'm busy then also. So that's the downside of having the public one first, is timing, for sure.
Yeah, that was kind of, I think, where I was going to eventually get to was, is there enough time to plan something in late July or early August, and then do the HCPO at the end of August. If that timing does not work great, then maybe we just target end of August and then potentially at our next meeting or meeting after that, kind of look forward to a time frame for like September for a forum, which is I was hoping this might help if we're, potentially asking Ron and or Onana about their availability, that would help them have a time frame in their head. Are there other things? Okay, so I don't know, Dawn, do you or Michelle feel like you would be ready to? Oh, so we need to reach out first to Ron and Onana before filling out the May 30th deadline HCPO proposal thing.
No, I think we can fill it out. We'll find, I think we've got a strong enough contacts to find someone.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think, Michelle? And I'm texting Ron right now.
And I think it just says like proposed speakers, so you don't need a list of finalized speakers at the moment. So like it doesn't matter if we put in ideas, it could change them later. It'd be fine.
Yeah. If you want to ping them by email, then I can do a group or a group you do by text, and I can do a group email, Dawn, and I can include him and Onana and just put some thoughts in there,
Yeah.
what we're thinking about objectives for HCPO versus objectives for a public meeting, and then gauge their interest on one of them participating in each of those. So I can do that by email. That'll give us a better sense. And then I would feel, we would out of that email conversation then get the direction we need for filling out the forum. So Dawn and I can work on that and can include on that email.
Hey, Galen just responded. He says, just saw your request. We'll try to log on to the meeting now.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Don't dismiss us yet.
Okay. Are there other items on information and outreach committee? I think that might cover it, but Dawn, if there's anything else.
I saw from our meeting notes last month that Mary Alice had brought up a HEPA-NEPA comparison. I guess I would advise against that, given how much things have changed with the new administration and rescinding CEQ regulations or the rule to propose rescinding CEQ. So with no implementing rules, things are a little. I just came back from the NAEP conference, which is a NEPA conference on the East Coast, and things are really up in the air. So I wouldn't advise that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, and you're right. Like, so that was in the context of like a topic ideas for a 343 forum, and like it made sense at the time for sure to have like what would be what are some of the key differences between NEPA and HEPA in terms of folks' expectations. But you're right. I was talking to a friend who does NEPA for a federal agency and is like, it's very much up in the air right now of what's the structure. So, but it sounds like the exemptions is a pertinent topic that will probably persist under and be a useful topic of conversation. So I guess now that Galen has joined us, Michelle, did you want to give any updates? And then,
Thank you for joining.
Oh, hello. Thanks. Sorry, I didn't see your email till just now.
Yeah, I apologize. I should have sent it way before. In truth, we had no substantive comments. You guys did a great job revising the list. I sort of filled everybody in on how you had restructured it, and moving a lot of things from part 2 to part 1. Also removing the part 3, the sort of emergency category. Overall nothing substantive. The only thing I noticed was there was some overlap in your part 1 under type 1. Numbers 10 through 16. So acquisition of land or easements through 16 permits, licenses. Some of those appear also under type 4,
Type 4, yeah.
part 1. So they're the same ones. They're just listed in both places.
Got it. Okay.
Again, it's I just want the list to work for you guys. So I think it type 1 is operations, repairs, and maintenance. Where they are now, type 4 is minor alterations. Some of those might fit under administrative, which is type 8, but if it makes sense from a program perspective to be together, it's fine, whether it's in type 1 or in type 4. I guess that's less important, but the fact that they were repetitive.
Okay, got it.
So maybe just eliminate them in one or the other place.
Okay. We'll look at which one makes sense. Okay. Oh,
yeah,
okay,
whichever
great.
one makes sense for you guys. I think it's fine.
Okay.
Because the intent is there. They're all part 1 exemption. So it's however it makes sense for DOE to put them. Yeah, if you would be willing to do that, we had sort of moved to approve. Again, that was mainly administrative, so we were good with the changes. But if you are willing to make that change, then if you could get that list to us before May 16th, that's the cutoff for publication in the May 23rd edition. So is that possible with your schedule?
Yes, we will get that.
Perfect. So if you just want to make that revision, then that's all we need. And then, include ERP on that email. And Tom's on that email group that we have. So if you just respond to that with the revised list attached, we can have that published. And then it'll go for the 15-day comment period. And then if we get any comments on it, we can, work with you guys, give you those comments and respond. See if any edits need to be made, and then we can move towards concurrence of the list.
Okay. And which date is that looking to be published then?
That would be the 23rd of May. So in the 23rd edition of the environmental notice.
Okay, thank you.
If we get it by the 16th. Yeah.
By the 16th, right? Okay.
Right.
We will get it to you before the 16th.
Okay. Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Okay. That was it.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the revising you did.
Oh yeah.
I know, that was a work, but yeah, this last one was a really good effort on our side. I think we really wanted to make sure we got rid of those the redundant and the repetitive items and address your concerns from before. So thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you so much.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Dawn? Oh, never mind. Okay.
Spider.
Oh, you were waving by. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was like trying to call on you. You were raising your hand. Okay. So there's an action item that Dawn and Michelle are reaching out to some potential folks and will communicate back, but are planning on proposing a forum/panel discussion for the HCPO conference. Are there any other upcoming items or things that folks have in their head now that they would like to see on an upcoming agenda? Again, there will be another call that ERP always kindly sends out. But is there anything in folks' heads for me to make a note of right now?
So something that we are embarking on is this long overdue revision to the rules, intended as essentially hopefully primarily a housekeeping endeavor. Never know where it's going to go, but that's the idea, is to keep it simple and just deal with the clear, obvious changes, changing the name of your council, changing us from OEQC. But your input is required and solicited.
Yes.
So probably should be an agenda item for you guys to ponder it together collectively.
Well, I think I offered to the council that we would provide them with a draft for them to react.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Right. You did that. So we have a rough draft. Let me get it a little bit smoothened out, and then I'll get it over to you. But yeah, we did prepare that. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Was it hasn't been on the agenda for the last meeting or so, but yeah, it was not that long ago, and so I know everyone is quite busy, and I didn't, and it in the middle of the ledge session, and so I didn't want to assume that a draft would be pending already. But yeah, we can let me know, and we can put that on an upcoming agenda when there's a draft that's ready for review and discussion.
I'll get it to you quickly, so plan on it being on the next agenda.
Okay, great. And then speaking of that, or Michelle, did you have?
Did we ever find Onana's notes from before on her input? I know that they worked on that in rules. I know that they had a list of proposed rule amendments. So just wondering if we found that or asked her for it.
Yeah. Right before this meeting, when my link to all of her EAC documents has expired.
Oh.
She sent it to all of us, like all of her documents. I did not download it fast enough, and so we may need to go back to that. I will make an action item for myself to email her.
Okay.
So the next meeting, or the next first Tuesday of the next month will be July.
I've already downloaded everything.
Okay, thank you, Jay.
This is Ona, right? Ona?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so I downloaded everything from her, all her materials, all the way
Do you
back
have
to
like
2018.
Dropbox folder or a way
I have
that
OneDrive, so I can share it
OneDrive
with-
would be good for me, and then I do both Dropbox
We're
and
not
OneDrive.
allowed to use Dropbox in my company.
Understood.
It's from my
Jay.
We'll follow up. Thank you, Jay. We'll email afterwards.
Sure.
And make sure that if you're willing to share a link to that with the rest of us, that'd be
I'll send it to all of you.
Okay.
Well, I'll
Thank
send it
you.
to the council members.
Yes.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.
Yes.
So June 3rd would be the next meeting. I know that we are headed into the summer and there's very few of us, and I am headed into travel. I could potentially make that meeting, but I might be driving on the mainland on the East Coast. So I don't know.
I also cannot make that meeting. I will also be traveling on June 3rd.
Okay.
That's two.
Is it? Yeah. So I'm trying to remember what precedent was here or what makes the most sense. Is it preferable to like push it by a week and aim for June 10th, or is it preferable to
June 10th is,
just not do a June meeting and meet in early July, which would be July 1st instead?
Yeah, I won't be able to meet on June 10th. I'm flying out to Tennessee on that day.
Okay.
Yeah, neither.
Okay, that's totally fair. Again,
one of those days
summer and like I feel like I'm traveling every couple weeks. I'm sorry, Mary Alice, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Chair, my apologies. Kamehameha Day is a state holiday, and it's either
Yes.
or 11th. I can't remember which.
It's the 11th.
Oh, okay.
So it's a Wednesday of that week, but it sounds like half of us wouldn't be able to make the 10th anyway. So is there any,
July, how about July?
yeah, so I was gonna say, is there any heartburn about not meeting in early June and meeting July 1st?
I guess to me, it depends on when you're gonna have the forum.
Yeah, so the what I was heard, and please correct me if I did not hear this correctly, was that we didn't think that a June or a July, early August was reasonable to do the public part of the forum, so that we would be aiming for HCPO would be the first, which is August 28th.
Yes.
And then a public forum would be after that. Partly because of this issue with summer and summer being a lot for everyone.
To me, I guess it just depends on how much time you think you need to prepare for a panel. I don't know. I have no frame of reference for this particular subject of how long it would take to prepare or not, or how much discussion you have to have. So
yeah, I don't see there being a ton of discussion at the environmental, like at the council level.
Mhm.
We're not necessarily, we're not driving.
Yeah, I think for the forum, we can have a side group discussion of the folks involved. And Jay, it sounds like you weren't planning to attend the HCPO, which is fine. I think then, Don and I with Tom can just do this with email with the folks we were gonna coordinate with. But if you'd like to be involved, we certainly can include you.
Jay, will you go to HCPO? Is that something you normally attend?
no, I don't, because I'm not in the planning group, so I don't normally
Okay.
go, but my planners go to it.
Okay.
So-
Did you want to attend if we're doing a forum there?
If we're doing a forum, then yeah, I would make a request to go.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm in Hawaii at that time. I have to be in Japan for a part of August, but I have to check what my schedule is. I'm there for about 2 weeks.
Okay.
And I don't remember when that client, I don't remember the dates. I have to check. But I think I can make it because I think I get back right before the forum begins. That's what I remember.
Okay.
Okay. So again, and that sounds like the next meeting will be July 1st, but that there can be conversation about planning for an HCPO forum, along the way.
Yeah. And I think that would just be in order not to have sunshine law issue, just be Michelle and I think, coordinating.
So based on, I was trying to find it, but I had sent all of you at one point kind of an excerpt from the sunshine law that as long as if we are not talking about like an item that is in front of the EAC, like we can talk to each other. We can talk about timing and agenda, like what should be on an agenda. We can't talk about the content of an agenda item. But this would be a event that is outside of the environmental council, and I don't think that there's any reason why like 3 people could not be on an email planning for a forum at HCPO, though we would obviously defer to, Mary Alice, if you or Tom conferred with your
OIT.
deputy AGs. Yeah.
We'll try to find the opinion number and send it again. Sounds like you've already, Rachel. But
I did. Yeah, I'm trying to find it immediately and I'm having a hard time, but
I think maybe we can shortcut that by calling them and asking them to resend it to us. And we can send
that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember Mary and we would just call each other or talk to each other or email each other.
Yep.
So it was really easy to set up. Again, Jay, it's basically, well, HCPO would be different. We probably have, I would say, 3 or 4 people, and Michelle would have her spiel, Tom would have his spiel, Ron or Onona, if they step up, would have their spiel. I'm sure there'll be lots of questions because it's not just planners that go, but it's also, like the environmental groups and the lawyers. So sometimes they go as well, and I'm sure they'll be asking pointed questions. So I'm sure there'll be some feedback. Yeah. So does that mean do we need to make a motion to submit something for the HCO website, or wasn't sure if we're just, I think because we won't meet until after the deadline to submit. So
Yep.
I think I just need to know, or like, are we gonna put something in for a session topic at HCPL?
Yes, that was what I was hearing, and
Okay.
and again, and my apologies. This is me being a little bit unfamiliar with sort of the new version of the EAC and the process of is that an action item on the part of the EAC that we need to vote on, or is that having proposing an educational forum?
Anyone can do that.
Yeah, do we usually do?
Oh, you mean for the INO forum, as opposed to
No.
the HCPO workshop?
Sure, either one.
I feel like we're acting as individuals for the HCPO workshop, and we're the INO, EAC INO for the public forum. So I feel like, if a few of us want to participate in the workshop and do that planning, it's as sort of in our professional roles capacity. I don't know. That's how I'd see it, but if I'm wrong, let me know.
For proposing something for HCPO, maybe if you're together now, just do it now.
Yeah, okay.
Not to be together again before the deadline.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't see that as an EAC action. It's kind of we're together. We're choosing to pursue that.
An EAC action to accept a proposal for a workshop. We're asking anybody with any thoughts at all, but I would particularly like to have a workshop on Chapter 343, because I think it's a very important area for all, the planning community and all the others who show up to be as familiar as possible with, and changes. And things are, we're seeing a lot of interest in 343, over controversial projects. Well, there's always that, always. But nonetheless, I think, just, tell Tom you want him to put in a proposal.
I'll come up with something.
And
Okay.
Tom has a PowerPoint that he uses for training, I think. We have that process flow chart that can be used. I mean, I don't think it needs to have new material. I think, there's quite a bit of material already, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of information ready to go.
And Tom can assign, sections of his training workshop to anybody who's willing to accept an assignment. It's voluntary, but you can work it out so that I always like to have different voices. I don't like to have just one person lecturing. So
right.
I think it's, it would be helpful from many perspectives to have a panel of you. It can include Tom, and divvying up the subject matter area, top, and each taking a section, and then when the question answers section comes, deciding who's the best person to answer it.
Okay, so I'm hearing that it's not a decision-making kind of item that needs
not from our
official. Okay, all right. So, but and I don't hear any objection either. So I think we're in good shape, and
it sounds like Tom's leading it. I think I just heard Mariella say Tom is leading.
He happens to be the closest person here that I can make suggestions to, and
Well, we can do it in the email, but yeah, sounds like, yeah, we've got some ideas. So I think we can definitely move forward with that and submit by the May 30th deadline.
Excellent, Michelle.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, I'll start the email conversation with you now.
Great, great.
All right.
Okay, thank you all. Are there any other items for the good of the order?
My apologies, Chair, for not prompting you to call on our member of the public for public comments.
Yes, thank you.
He had to remind me that he wanted to do that. So I think for future meetings, maybe I need Rachel's cell phone number so I can send you a text if I get.
Sure, yes.
So I'll try to send you a reminder, see if you can. I've got your email address, I think, on my desktop, but I checked and I didn't have you in my contacts.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yeah. I think I might have you in. I don't know if yeah. I will try to remember better to make sure that we're doing that after each agenda as part of each agenda item.
Yeah, a standing agenda item maybe for public comments. There never has been before for many, many, many months, but of course that's when someone comes to do it.
There's some OIP guidance on that, in part because it becomes an issue when somebody wants to make a public comment kind of out of the order in which it's listed in the agenda, or so this has been chewed on quite a bit.
Yeah.
And so it may be either after the item has been introduced and before the members deliberate and act for action items, so that they have the benefit of the public comment when they take an action. And I think, yes, some boards started out asking for public comments when it was first introduced as a requirement at the beginning of the meeting, and then people objected because, they hadn't heard, board members' discussion yet, but they wanted to have their thoughts heard before any actions were taken. So
I see. Yes.
Yeah. So I guess figuring out when to call for public comments became a topic, and I think OIP waded in and provided some guidance.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good note, and it's especially a good note where it relates to action items that
We can stick it in.
Yeah, and that there may sometimes be, it may be at the end. Other times it might behoove us to just call for public comments along the way as part of individual agenda items. Okay, thank you again for that reminder, and I think it's might be in my head, but I'll appreciate the reminder at future meetings. All right, well, thank you all. If there's nothing else, I will call for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Thanks, Jay. Second from Don. All those in favor?
Aye.
Emerson, thank you. And Jay said aye. And that's everyone. That's unanimous, so I don't need to call for any opposed. All right, so we are adjourned at 2:59. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you at the next meeting.
Mahalo.
Thanks.
Yeah, I was a little confused on what you